If I hadn't broken the rule they drilled into us from day one, no contact with guests under any circumstance, I might have slept easy. But it started with a girl who looked at the food like she knew it wasn't meant for her. And now, looking back, I realize that moment was the first step into a secret that cost people their careers, their safety, and their illusion that the elite have any idea what happens under their own roof. Los Angeles smells like lime and steel if you spend enough time behind its kitchens. Walk-ins exhale cold air that burns your lungs, and everything, from prep knives to people, moves with urgency. I was halfway through my second checklist by the time the sun dipped behind Greystone Hall, that over-polished Gothic monolith they rent out for the ultra-wealthy to pretend they still have souls. I'd worked enough of these events to know when to keep my head down. Name's Jessica, 31, catering coordinator for Monarch, an elite firm that serves food worth more than my car. I didn't get here by accident. I'm sharp, methodical, and not afraid to say no. But I also know how to play the game. The rules are simple. Keep your head down, wear black, and above all else, no personal contact. It's written in block letters near every service entrance. Tonight was a high-security fundraiser for Senator John Marcus. Big name, bigger money. Guest list read like a who's who of Wall Street and Washington, each with their own security detail and zero patience. Monarch had been tapped for food and logistics. Victoria, our queen bee boss, was on edge. Her stilettos clicked like a metronome across the marble. She didn't even glance at me when I walked in. Just tossed a revised prep list on the counter and pointed at the dessert bar. So far, so typical. But then I saw her. Tucked behind a folding screen near the northwest service door, just out of view from the main ballroom. A child. Alone. No badge. No food. Just watching us like we were aliens, and she was trying to figure out if we were dangerous. She didn't blink when our staff bustled past her with trays of foie gras and microgreens. She just stood there. Shoes too small, dress too clean for a worker's kid, too simple for a guest. No handler, no security nearby. She looked like a stray cat at a five-star restaurant window. I double-checked my guest list. No children allowed, none scheduled, none approved. And this wasn't the kind of place where you ask questions out loud. I caught myself before I made eye contact too long and slipped into the back kitchen. I told myself it wasn't my problem. The prep room was thick with the smell of duck fat and citrus glaze. My crew moved like choreography, gloved hands, tongs, linen, done. I was halfway through plating the amuse-bouches when I glanced back through the gap in the curtain. Still there, still watching. I waited until Victoria stepped away to take a call, then grabbed a napkin, 2 mini sandwiches, and a small bottle of water. My hands shook more than I expected. Behind a tall stack of trays, I slipped through the curtain and crouched down. She didn't speak. I didn't either. I just placed the napkin beside her on the floor and walked away. I wasn't trying to break the rules. I just couldn't stop thinking about the way she looked at the food. Not greedy, not needy, just empty. I've seen that look before, on my own face. Years ago, when rent was a maybe and food was a decision you paid for in skipped prescriptions. By the time I returned to the main line, Victoria had circled back. Her eyes were hawk-sharp, scanning. She clocked the missing items immediately. Her voice cut through the air like a chilled knife. "Jessica, did you just feed someone off menu?" I didn't flinch. "Just running the numbers. We had excess." She stepped closer. I could smell the cinnamon gum she always chewed before showtime. "That's not our responsibility. Feed her again and you're off payroll. You want to play savior? Do it on your own time." I nodded, silent. The words curled in my chest like a swallowed nail. Not our responsibility. Right. The night moved forward in polished waves of fake smiles and silver trays. Waiters floated through the ballroom, each train to vanish into the background. No one noticed the girl. She stayed tucked in the shadows like she was part of the architecture. But I noticed. At 11:43 p.m., after the third round of champagne and second standing ovation, I slipped into the staff room and left a plate behind the water cooler. Crusty bread, a slice of apple, and a cookie wrapped in another napkin. I didn't see her take it. But at 12:19 a.m., as I was unloading trays into the van, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. Thank you for the food. No name. No emoji. Just those 5 words. My chest tightened. Not with fear, with something heavier. Something that felt like the beginning of a crack in everything I thought I understood. Something was wrong at Greystone Hall. And I wasn't sure yet if I'd just made it better. Or worse. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept replaying that text over and over in my head. Thank you for the food. 5 words. No context. No name. Just the faint glow of my phone screen in a dark apartment, reminding me that something, someone, was out there and watching. Or maybe surviving. There's a difference. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was overthinking it. Maybe the kid had slipped past security somehow. Maybe she was part of a vendor team. Maybe there was some mistake on the guest list. Either way, it wasn't my job to solve it. Feed the rich, clean up the mess, clock out. That's the rhythm. Always has been. But I couldn't shake her face. That quiet, calculated stillness. Like she'd learned how to make herself invisible. That's a survival skill, and it doesn't come from comfort. I showed up to work 20 minutes early, like always. Monarch's main office sat on the 4th floor of a nondescript building on Wilshire. No signs, no logos, just clean walls and neutral colors. Corporate minimalism designed to keep people moving. When I walked in, the air was thick with steam from the espresso machine, the hum of printers, and the sound of Victoria's heels clicking across tile. I knew that rhythm too. It usually meant someone was about to get fired. I dropped my keys in my locker, clocked in, and stepped into the prep room just as Victoria turned from the whiteboard. "Jessica," she said, crisp as cut glass. "A moment?" We walked into the hall. The door clicked shut behind us and the silence pressed in. Her eyes were the color of ash. Smoky, unreadable. She didn't waste time. "We've had a client inquiry," she said, "about last night." I blinked. "The senator?" She nodded, lips pressed into a thin line. Apparently, someone made personal contact with a minor. Every nerve in my body snapped upright. "A girl," Victoria continued, "unaccompanied, no name, no clearance, and according to Greystone's cameras, she wasn't a guest, which means she was on site without authorization, and someone fed her." I said nothing. She folded her arms. "I reviewed your station logs. You were the only coordinator near that corridor during cleanup." My throat tightened. I could lie. Say I left early. Blame a server. But I didn't. I just nodded once. Victoria's tone flattened further. "That is a direct violation of our terms. You know the rules." "I know." She held my gaze. "One more mistake like that, Jessica, and you're off the payroll. No second talks." "I understand." She stared a moment longer, then turned and walked away without another word. Back in the prep room, my hands moved on autopilot, slicing, organizing, labeling, but my head was spinning. It didn't feel like I'd done something wrong. It felt like I'd broken an unspoken code. Not one of professionalism, one of obedience. We weren't just hired to feed. We were expected to be invisible, quiet, complicit. But that girl hadn't been invisible. Not to me. By noon, I was elbow-deep in poached pears and trying to ignore the heat crawling up my neck when I heard the servers whispering behind the rack line. She didn't even have a badge. I heard she'd been there for hours. Didn't eat. Didn't talk. Creepy, right? I stepped around the rack. Who are you talking about? They glanced at each other. One of them, a kid named Leo, cleared his throat. From last night. The girl. Some of the guys saw her in the security feed. Apparently, she was just standing there for like 3 hours. 3 hours. No food, no escort, no panic, just stillness. I turned away before they could see my face. Later, when I opened my locker to grab my lunch, the paper sign caught my eye again, taped above the staff board in permanent marker. No personal contact. No exceptions. It used to be just a rule. Now it felt like a warning, or maybe a threat. That night, I went home and sat in the dark again, the city outside humming with its usual unrest, distant sirens, muffled music, helicopters circling somewhere above Koreatown. I stared at my phone. No new messages, no missed calls, but I scrolled back to that one text. Still there. Thank you for the food. I clicked on the number. It was unlisted. No profile picture, no name. I saved it anyway. Labeled it unknown guest. Then I opened a new message. Typed, "Are you okay?" I hovered over send, then deleted it. Instead, I typed again, "Who are you?" Deleted it. My thumb hovered one last time before I finally powered off the screen and set the phone face down on the table. I wasn't ready to reach out. Not yet. But I also knew, without a doubt, I wasn't done with her either. And something told me she wasn't done with me. Fundraisers have a hum to them. It's not the kind of noise you hear at street festivals or sports arenas. It's more controlled, more artificial, like the sound of old money pretending to be modern. Glasses clink. Laughter comes in short, rehearsed bursts. And beneath it all, the buzz of people calculating social power like it's part of the menu. Greystone Hall had already filled by 7:30. The marble floors swallowed the heels of designer shoes, and the air smelled like perfume layered over politics. I walked the perimeter like always, checking placements, eyeing tray flow, making sure the waitstaff didn't bunch at the entrance like sheep. Victoria stood near the wine table watching everything like a hawk in pearls. Her phone never left her hand. She gave me a glance when I passed but said nothing. That was her version of trust. But my eyes weren't on her. They were looking for her. The girl. I didn't expect to see her again. Not really. I figured she'd been a one-time mystery, the kind that vanishes as quietly as it appears. But at 8:14, near the side corridor leading to the East Gallery, I saw a shadow move. Not a server. Not a guest. I moved closer, careful not to draw attention. There she was. Same dress, same shoes, same ghost-like presence. She stood behind a column near a row of unlit sconces, almost entirely out of view. Her eyes tracked the trays as they floated past, but she didn't reach for anything. Her hands were tucked into the sleeves of her cardigan like she'd been taught to stay still until permission arrived. I told myself to walk away. That one warning from Victoria should have been enough, but something pulled at me. That same feeling I'd had the first time I saw her, like someone was holding a mirror up to a memory I'd tried to bury. At 9:02, I returned to the staff room and slid a plate into the back corner. Crusty bread, sliced apple, a cookie folded in a napkin. I didn't leave a note. I just positioned it where only someone small and quiet might find it. Then I went back to the floor. The night crawled. Politicians posed with donors near the faux library backdrop. A string quartet played something sterile and elegant. People said things like philanthropic strategy and tax-advantaged gifting, like they were talking about hobbies, not power. At 11:37, as I was organizing the final round of espresso service, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time, it was a picture. My plate. Empty. The napkin, folded into a small shape. A bracelet. My throat tightened. I hadn't mentioned that detail to anyone, but she had noticed. She remembered the cloth bracelet she wore that first night. Pale blue, fraying at the ends, tied in a knot. Now it was folded in the same shape. A reply, in code. I looked around the ballroom, scanning faces. Everyone here was too tall, too polished, too distracted. She was gone again. By midnight, we'd cleared the tables. The ballroom echoed with the scuff of heels and the drag of linen carts. I ducked into the staff room for a moment of silence, my hands still sticky from lemon syrup. The plate was gone. I reached for my phone again, half hoping, half fearing another message. But the screen stayed blank. I sat on a supply crate near the mop sink, my knees shaking in a way I hadn't expected. Not from fear, from recognition. That kind of hunger. The one that doesn't ask, only watches. It doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in silence. In households where being noticed is a risk. I remembered being 9, sitting under the dinner table while my mom threw a half-filled bottle at my uncle. She missed. I didn't. She didn't notice me until the next morning. I learned then how to be quiet in the places adults forgot to look. The girl wasn't running. She wasn't trespassing. She was surviving. And the worst part? She wasn't hiding from the world. She was hiding inside it. By 12:42, we were out the back loading trays into Monarch's catering vans. The sky was a smear of gray-blue and city haze. I hadn't seen Victoria in over an hour, which meant she'd left satisfied. But I still felt off, like something had been moved inside me a few degrees off-center. As I climbed into the front cab, I noticed something wedged under the windshield wiper. A small paper napkin. Folded. Bracelet shape. I took it carefully, hands trembling more than I wanted to admit. I opened it slowly. Inside, a single word. Soon. No punctuation. No name. I stared at it for a long time before slipping it into my pocket. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew I'd just stepped off the line between employee and witness, and that changes everything. Morning came thick and sour, like milk left too long in the sun. I sat in Monarch's office kitchen staring into a cup of stale coffee. The napkin with the word soon sat folded in my jacket pocket like a secret I hadn't decided what to do with. No one else seemed to notice anything was off. The interns bickered about broken pastry tongs. Someone in marketing was pitching a summer rooftop series to a client in Brentwood. On the surface, everything hummed like it always did. But beneath it, I felt the shift. Something had moved, and I'd been the one to move it. The client email hit our inbox just before 10 a.m. Victoria called an emergency team meeting and had us all seated around the long glass table in the planning suite. She held her iPad like a scalpel, flipping the screen toward us. The message was short. Just one sentence highlighted. Which staff member made personal contact with a minor at last night's event? No pleasantries. No names. No accusations. Just that one cold, surgical question. Victoria didn't need to say it. Everyone looked at me. I kept my face blank. Straight posture. No blinking. But my throat had gone dry. I want full station reports from everyone, Victoria said, scanning us like we were bugs under glass. Trash logs, delivery receipts, timing logs, everything. This is a compliance breach, and I won't have Monarch's reputation compromised. Compliance breach. I wanted to laugh. We had served foie gras on edible spoons to people who owned islands. One of our clients once requested a waitstaff uniform change mid-event because the navy jackets reminded her of grief. We catered to power, not morality. But helping a child? That was crossing the line? After the meeting, she cornered me outside the break room. "You're lucky they didn't name you directly," she said. I didn't answer. Victoria leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I've seen good coordinators wreck their future over a bleeding heart. You want to be a savior? Go join the Peace Corps. Here? You follow the brief. I understand, I said carefully. She studied me. You get one warning. That was it. I nodded and walked away, before my hands betrayed me. Later, I sat in the parking lot with my lunch untouched and my phone burning in my hand. I scrolled through our company's client archive, matching dates and venues. Senator John Marcus. He'd hosted the event at Greystone Hall, a family-focused political figure, adoptive father of two. The guest list had included business partners, donors, and 3 representatives from foster care nonprofits. I clicked on a news article with his face. Clean-cut, silver-haired, public smile tight with control. Then I saw it. A family photo taken a few months back. Him, his wife, a boy about 13, and a girl. Her. The same eyes. Same cardigan. The caption read, "With daughter Elena Marquez, adopted last spring." Elena. Her name was Elena. Suddenly, everything made sense. And none of it did. She wasn't lost. She was kept hidden. Greystone security hadn't missed her. They'd known. Her presence had been intentional, and her absence from the guest flow, managed. She wasn't wandering. She was walled off. A ghost in her own home. I remembered the way she watched the food, not longingly, but analytically. Like someone used to being forgotten, but still choosing when to be seen. And now, someone in the senator's circle had noticed that moment of contact. The plate, the cookie, me. I couldn't let it slide, but going to the press would be suicide. No proof, no story. So I did something quieter. I contacted someone who worked around the powerful, but just outside their spotlight, the florist. Florists are the ghostwriters of elite events. They hear everything, but no one sees them. Greystone had used the same floral designer for 5 years, Maya Shu, a woman who could turn eucalyptus into a metaphor. I called her. "Hey Maya, it's Jessica from Monarch. I was wondering, I have a question about last night's event." "Sure," she said. Her voice was light but cautious. "I need a quiet way to pass something along. No drama, just an observation." A pause, then, "Go on." I folded the napkin from my pocket back into the same bracelet shape Elena had worn. I snapped a photo of the original food plate, time-stamped from my prep log. No names, no story, just a fact. Then I wrote a single note. Plate left for minor guest behind staff water station. No contact beyond food. Minor responded later via anonymous message. Please confirm appropriate handling. Not seeking escalation, only closure. Maya agreed to forward it discreetly. Said she'd route it through the senator's private assistant. No trails, no noise. I hit send and watched the message leave my phone like a stone tossed into black water. Then I waited. The reply came the next morning at 6:18 a.m. from a private number. No signature, just 5 words. "We'd like to speak with you." And under that, privately. I read the message 3 times before I moved. "We'd like to speak with you." Privately. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't warm. It sat in that strange middle space reserved for people who want to talk before they decide what you're worth. By 6:40 a.m., I'd already showered, dressed, and packed my day bag. Monarch had a brunch install at a gallery downtown, but I didn't plan on showing up. Not until I handled this. I texted Maya. "Did they contact you too?" She responded with just a name and an address. Julia Moreno, Special Assistant, Office of Senator Marcus, 1621 Springwood. Use back entrance. I didn't ask how she got that. Maya operates in whispers and flower stems. If she trusts you, she gives you access. If not, you get silence. I guess I'd earned something between the two. The drive to Springwood was 30 minutes of tight shoulders and foggy thoughts. Every possible version of the meeting played in my mind. Denial, confrontation, legal threats. But part of me didn't believe they'd go nuclear. If they wanted to crush me, they wouldn't be this quiet. The address wasn't a government building. It was a brownstone, modest, shaded by old sycamore trees, with a security camera tucked behind the gutter. I parked across the street and walked up the side gate. At the back door, a man in a charcoal suit opened it before I knocked. "You're Jessica?" I nodded. He said nothing, just gestured for me to follow. Inside, it felt more like a therapist's office than anything official. Muted rugs, bookshelves, framed landscapes. A kettle hissed quietly on a side table. No nameplates. No politics. Julia Moreno was younger than I expected. Late 30s, sharp-cut bob, wire-rimmed glasses, wearing jeans and a blazer like someone who got dressed fast but still meant business. She stood when I entered. "Jessica, thanks for coming." I stayed near the door. "You said you wanted to speak with me?" "I did." She motioned to a chair. "Please." I sat slowly, fingers clasped in my lap. I felt like I was being weighed, measured. Julia didn't stall. "You left a plate for a miner. At Greystone. You know which miner?" "Yes." "No contact?" "None. Not even a word." "She reached out after?" "She left a message. On my phone. No name." Julia looked at the floor for a second, then back at me. "You didn't report it to Monarch?" "I was told to stay silent. Victoria made it clear." Julia gave the faintest of nods. Not agreement, but acknowledgement. "You're not in trouble," she said. "Really? Because this feels like a job interview for exile." She gave a soft smile. "It's not." She stood, walked to a file drawer and pulled out a folder. No label. She opened it and slid a photo across the table. Elena. But not hiding. Not in the shadows. She was maybe 4 or 5 in this one, thinner, younger. Her eyes wide with something close to terror. Her arms clutched a stuffed penguin. The background was institutional. A clinic, maybe. Or worse. "She was found in a trafficking ring," Julia said quietly. 2 years ago. Fostered first, then adopted by the senator last spring. We've kept the details out of the press." My mouth felt dry. Jesus. "She's not nonverbal, but she's highly selective. Doesn't speak to most people. Avoids crowds. Has an extremely rigid comfort protocol." "I didn't know." "No one expects you to." Julia folded her hands. "We've worked hard to protect her. Staff are vetted. Movement is scheduled. But sometimes she deviates." "She wasn't trying to cause a scene," I said quickly. "She just—" "We know. We reviewed footage. You didn't approach her. You gave her space. But you also noticed her." She looked hungry. Julia looked at me, and for the first time I saw something softer in her eyes. "She was. She's recovering from avoidant restrictive intake. Food is a battleground." I exhaled slowly. I wanted to say more, but no words came that wouldn't feel like intrusion. "We don't want this public," she continued. "Not to protect us. To protect her. She's stable now, but still fragile." "I get it." "She asked about you. Said the plate lady was nice. That's all she said. But for Elena, that's a lot." I blinked fast. "She remembered me?" "She folded a napkin bracelet last night. Put it on her door. Her therapist said it meant something." I sat back. Breath caught somewhere in my chest. Julia slid a business card across the table. "We run a small internal initiative. Discreet staff who understand trauma-informed protocol. Occasionally we bring in outside contractors who've proven themselves attentive. Like me? If you're interested." I stared at the card. It didn't say much. Just an embossed emblem and a phone number. "No obligation," Julia added. "But kindness like yours? It's rare in this industry." I stood. "I'm not always kind." "Maybe not. But you were when it mattered." I turned to leave. Paused. "Is she—" Okay now? Julia smiled gently. Better than she was. Still earning trust. I nodded once. Me too. As I stepped out into the sunlit alley, the air felt warmer than it had in days. The senator's office didn't look like power. It looked like calm. Muted carpet. Art that whispered, not shouted. A faint citrus smell in the air that reminded me of clean towels and wealth. No brass plaques. No framed photos of handshakes. Just a soft tick from the grandfather clock in the corner, as if even time was being asked to behave. I sat in the waiting room, trying not to bounce my leg. The secretary offered tea, water, or a distraction smile. I asked for nothing. My fingers ran along the edge of the envelope in my lap, the one I'd used to carry my timeline notes. Just in case. I wasn't sure what interview meant in this context. But I was here, and I intended to show I hadn't come to burn bridges. Just to understand why someone had built a wall around a little girl like a prison, not a home. A door opened quietly. Jessica. A woman in a navy blazer stepped out. Sharp cheekbones, no visible jewelry, eyes like she could see through spreadsheets and lies. He's ready for you. The inner office was large, but not grand. It felt measured, like someone had erased anything that might look too emotional or too opulent. The man behind the desk stood as I entered. Senator John Marcus looked exactly like his campaign photos. That salt and pepper haircut, the slight lean forward when he greeted you like he was always mid-conversation with the country. But in person, he seemed older, tired in the way people get when they've been solving the wrong problems for too long. He gestured toward a chair across from his desk. Thank you for coming, Ms. Rowe. Of course. I won't take much of your time. I don't mind. We sat. The room settled. No aides, no cameras. Just two people with too much between them and one small person neither of us quite knew how to protect. He folded his hands. I wanted to hear it from you. Not through reports. Not filtered. I nodded. Understood. He looked me in the eye. Tell me what you saw. So I did. From the first night, the shadows near the hallway, the missing plate, the small water bottle and napkin I left tucked behind the cooler. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't name drop. Just laid out the facts, the silences, the look in her eyes like she'd spent years learning how not to need anyone. And I told him about the second night, the folded napkin, the text, the message she left on my windshield. She didn't ask for anything, I said softly. She didn't even look like she expected kindness. She just watched, like she was waiting for something worse. The senator's fingers tightened slightly. Elena, he said, voice softer now, is very careful with her reactions. Her therapists call it adaptive compliance. I've read about it, I replied. Kids who mask distress to avoid punishment. He nodded slowly. She's lived in 5 homes, 1 residential facility. The adoption process took nearly a year, and the more she smiled during interviews, the more people thought she was fine. Until she stopped eating. He looked at me. Not surprised. Just grateful I understood. She's under a trauma-informed care plan, strict environment, assigned handlers. We try to make sure her space is safe. But she stepped out of it. Yes. And you're worried what else she might do. His jaw flexed. No. I'm worried what someone else might do if they don't understand her. There it was. She wasn't the risk. We were. I exhaled. I didn't break her trust. I didn't even talk to her. He met my gaze. No. You broke ours. But gently. And sometimes, that's necessary. Silence sat between us for a long moment. Finally, he said, You will not be punished for kindness. I nodded. He leaned back. Most people in hospitality learn to erase themselves. You didn't. I used to. What changed? Someone gave me a plate when I didn't expect one. He smiled faintly. And now you gave it to someone else? I shifted. With respect, Senator, a child shouldn't have to whisper for food in a room full of it. He nodded. No argument, just acceptance. Then, there's a program we're building. It's called Safe Plates, a nonprofit wing under my foundation. Hospitality training for foster youth, paid apprenticeships, food safety certifications, trauma-informed service models. I blinked. That's real? It's launching in 6 weeks. We need someone to help build the framework. Someone who knows both sides of the plate. I didn't answer right away. I'm not a therapist, I said. No, you're something rarer. Someone who noticed. He stood. I did too. He extended his hand. Take a few days. If you're interested, we'll send you the materials. I shook his hand. I don't need a few days. He raised an eyebrow. I'm in, I said. He gave a quiet laugh. Then welcome to the real work. As I stepped out into the hallway, I felt something lift. Not joy, not triumph, just clarity. This wasn't about Elena anymore. It was about the next girl, and the one after that. And maybe, finally, building a table where no one had to whisper to be seen. A week later, the story broke. It wasn't a headline, not really. More like a whisper that got loud because people leaned in. It ran on a mid-tier industry site, one of those platforms where hospitality professionals vent anonymously and vendors throw shade with a smile. The title was careful, almost sterile. Elite catering firm threatens staffer for helping child at private fundraiser. No names, no venues, just anonymous sources, 2 photos of fancy table setups, and a quote from a staff member with direct knowledge. It read like someone had watched the whole event from a shadowed corner, and maybe, in a way, someone had. The article described how a catering team member had allegedly broken company policy to assist a minor during a high-profile political fundraiser. The response from leadership, it claimed, had been swift and cold. A direct warning, threats of termination, and an internal clampdown on all staff communication. The story ended with this. The message was clear. Don't get involved, not even for a hungry child. By 9 a.m., the catering world was buzzing. I was still brushing pastry crumbs off my jacket when my phone lit up with 4 texts from different coordinators across the city. This about you? Holy shit, Monarch's on fire. Respect. If this is you, respect. Victoria must be livid. I didn't respond. I just scrolled down the article again, reading the comments. Typical. They care more about optics than people. Worked for Monarch once. Coldest leadership I've ever seen. This industry breaks the good ones. Hope she's okay. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt exposed. My inbox had no official message from Monarch. Not at first. But at 11:43, I was called into Victoria's office. The air inside was sharper than usual. You could practically smell the damage control. She sat behind her desk, a sealed white envelope in front of her. No smile. Just that precise professional stare she used on staff and stubborn pastry vendors alike. Jessica. Victoria. You've read the article? I have. Do you know who leaked it? I didn't blink. No. Her lips thinned. It's not just gossip. We've had 2 clients ask for contract reviews. One has paused their winter gala. Another wants to audit our HR practices. I waited. Victoria tapped the envelope. This is a goodwill stipend, a thank you for your years of service. I raised an eyebrow. Bribe money in a thank you card? Jessica, this could all stay internal. It doesn't need to escalate. I leaned forward, voice calm. It already has. She held her posture, but something flickered behind her eyes. Fear? No. Worse. Irrelevance. I didn't touch the envelope. You told me helping that girl was a mistake. And it was. For us. For you. No, it wasn't. I stood. You built a company where compassion was a liability. That's your legacy. Not mine. She didn't stop me when I turned to leave. Didn't call after me. Just sat there, hands frozen over the envelope like maybe she didn't even know what she'd written on the card inside. That afternoon, Monarch released a statement on social media. We take allegations seriously. We are conducting an internal review of all staff policies and remain committed to ethical standards across all events. The comments section did not go well. One chef posted a crying laugh emoji. Another linked the article again. A third simply wrote, "Too little, too late." 2 days later, the break room sign disappeared. The one that had hung above the lockers for years, etched in bold marker. No personal contact, no exceptions. Someone had peeled it off and folded it in half. I found it tucked behind the microwave, quiet and crumpled like a finished chapter. On my last day, I cleaned out my locker in silence. No dramatic speeches, no standoffs, just me and a small cardboard box with my name sharpied on the side. As I walked through the main floor one final time, I looked back only once. Victoria's office door was shut, but I could feel the silence through the wall. Outside, the sky was that washed-out kind of blue LA gets in early spring. Too bright to cry under, too clean to stay angry. I didn't feel triumphant, but I felt right. And sometimes, that's the better reward. It started with silence. Not the good kind, not peace. The kind of silence you hear when something big is about to fall, but no one wants to admit it's already cracked at the center. 3 days after the article, Monarch's phones rang less. The inbox, once a steady stream of event confirmations and high-budget demands, slowed into a drip. The front desk receptionist, Kira, spent more time refreshing her tabs than answering calls. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. Staff still moved through the building in black shirts and pressed slacks. The scent of rosemary and lemon still drifted from the prep kitchens. Victoria still showed up every morning in heels that struck the floor like gavel knocks. But underneath, everything was buckling. 2 of our top-tier clients, both old money types with thick contracts and zero tolerance for drama, suspended their upcoming events. No reason given. Just clean, contractual language that translated to, "We saw the story. We don't want to be next." A third client demanded a formal review of all personnel policies before moving forward with their summer wedding. Victoria issued a pressurized internal memo that read like it had been ghost-written by a lawyer and a panic attack. Words like optics, reputation assurance, and operational realignment started showing up in hallway conversations. On Thursday, we lost the Sonoma Vineyards account. That one hit like a fist. Monarch had serviced them for 8 years. Weddings, galas, wine launches. They didn't even call. Just emailed a 3-line cancellation and moved on. People noticed. The pastry chef stopped humming during prep. The events assistant cried in the bathroom. Not once, but twice. The linen supplier called to double-check if we still wanted our weekly standing order. Inside the warehouse, the air changed. Trays sat longer on shelves. Walk-ins weren't as full. It smelled empty, like metal without motion. Victoria stopped speaking in meetings unless it was absolutely necessary. When she did, her voice lost that edge of performative elegance. It became clipped, businesslike, afraid. On Monday morning, HR sent out a short internal update. Effective immediately, Victoria Lang is on administrative leave pending internal inquiry. That was it. No farewell, no explanation. Just gone. Her office door stayed shut for 2 days, then opened with a different keycard. People started whispering in the corners of the prep kitchen. Not gossip, speculation. Like they were trying to predict the weather on a planet that had never rained before. And through all of it, no one mentioned my name. Not directly, but they didn't have to. Every time someone glanced at the break room wall where the sign used to hang, no personal contact, no exceptions. I could feel the pause, like they noticed the absence, like they were waiting to see what might replace it. I came back only once after my resignation to file a formal complaint. Not out of spite, not to twist the knife, because some part of me still believed systems don't change unless you write it down. I walked into HR with a manila envelope, my statement printed and dated. 3 pages, detailed accounts of what happened after the Greystone event. Victoria's verbal threats, the team pressure, the passive retaliation. The HR manager, Leon, didn't look surprised. He read the first paragraph and gave a tired nod. "You're not the first," he said. "But I'll be the one who signs it," I replied. He took it, logged it, thanked me. As I left the office, I passed the staff bulletin board. New notices had been pinned up in neon colors: wellness reminders, anonymous reporting protocols, flyers for mental health resources. It looked like overcorrection, but still, it was something. I stood there, eyes scanning the corkboard, until I saw it. A small note, handwritten, tucked near the bottom corner. It wasn't official. It wasn't even centered. But someone had put it there with purpose. It said, "Compassion is policy. We just forgot." No signature. But I knew. Back home, I finally took the old folded sign out of my bag, the one I'd peeled off the break room wall before leaving for good. The thick white poster board, letters faded from years of tape and glare. I laid it flat on my table. No personal contact. No exceptions. I stared at it a long time, then folded it slowly, one crease at a time, until it was small enough to fit in a drawer. And I let it go. Somewhere in the distance, Monarch would either rebuild or collapse completely. Maybe they'd spin off a new brand. Maybe they'd erase my name from every staffing archive. But that wasn't mine to carry anymore. I wasn't theirs. Not anymore. It came on a Tuesday. I was sitting in the small kitchen of my apartment, staring at a half-burnt piece of toast and the job board open on my laptop. Listings blurred into each other. Private chef gigs, sous positions, hospitality managers for restaurants with turnover rates higher than their reviews. I hadn't submitted a single resume in 3 days. I wasn't unemployed. I was unmoored. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Not a robocall prefix. Not LA-based either. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something tugged at my gut. "Jessica Rowe," I answered. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. Warm, precise, but with the weight of someone who doesn't waste words. "Ms. Rowe, this is Senator Marcus." I straightened instinctively, though no one could see me. "Senator. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." I glanced at the job board full of nothing. "No, not at all. I'm calling because we're ready to launch. The program we discussed, Safe Plates, is live." My throat tightened a little. "You actually did it." "I meant it when I said we needed someone like you to lead it. And after everything, your story gave it shape." There was a pause. A soft, careful one. "Elena's therapist tells me she's asked to visit kitchens. Real ones. Not curated for guests. Places where people work. And she asked if the plate lady would be there." The plate lady. It hit me harder than I expected. "I'd be honored," I said. "Then let's make it official." The onboarding packet came an hour later. Clean, branded, with a mission statement that actually meant something. Where survival meets skill. Where care meets craft. Safe Plates wasn't just a training program. It was a pipeline. Foster youth and trauma survivors learning real kitchen discipline. Culinary basics, yes, but also food safety, knife handling, menu literacy, plating, even soft skills. Interview etiquette, station respect, emotional regulation. The kicker? Paid hours, no unpaid internships, no exposure gigs, real money for real labor. I signed the contract with hands that shook a little, not from fear, from disbelief. A week later, I received my badge. The plastic gleamed under the light. Jessica Rowe, Program Director, Safe Plates Initiative. I wore it like armor. The kitchen was in Boyle Heights. Industrial space repurposed into something that breathed possibility. 12 full stations, a walk-in fridge, pantry shelves organized like someone actually respected the ingredients. The tile still smelled like new grout. Steam already curled from the first stock pot. And the kids? They weren't smiling. Not at first. Most of them were guarded, shoulders tight, eyes darting like they were waiting for the punchline or the betrayal. I knew that look. We didn't start with food. We started with silence. 10 minutes. No instructions. Just letting them be. Letting them notice that no one yelled, no one grabbed, no one got kicked out for asking what a whisk was. Then I rolled up my sleeves. Okay, I said, loud enough to echo. First thing you're gonna learn, how to sharpen a knife without slicing off a fingertip. That got a few smirks, a scoff, and one curious glance from the boy near the back wall. Progress. The days moved fast after that. They learned how to julienne carrots, how to mop a floor properly, how to identify mold on cheese and not be embarrassed by it. We made mistakes. We laughed once, maybe twice. And then, in the second week, she showed up. Elena. Older by a year. Taller. But still quiet. Still shadowed. She walked in wearing a zip-up hoodie 2 sizes too big and a ponytail that looked like she'd tied it herself. She didn't speak. She just watched. I saw her standing near the sink, fingers curling around the edge of the counter like she was anchoring herself. I walked over, slowly. Knelt so we were eye level. "Do you remember me?" I asked gently. She didn't answer, but after a pause she reached into her sleeve and pulled something out. A napkin. Folded. Bracelet shape. I felt something crack and settle inside my chest. "I never forgot you," I whispered. We didn't hug. She didn't smile. But she handed me the napkin like it was a flag. And in that moment, it was. After class, I poured a cup of water into a plastic cup and lifted it toward the room. "Kindness," I said, "is never a mistake." Some of them nodded. One girl rolled her eyes. One boy raised his cup in return. Good enough. The spoons clinked against bowls, and for the first time in years, it sounded like music. 1 year later, the kitchen sings. Not literally, though some of the students hum when they slice herbs, but with rhythm, flow. Pans hiss, spoons clink, voices bounce off tiled walls. There's structure now, but also ease, like the space has learned how to breathe with its people. I stand near the main prep island watching a group of teenagers debate the best way to deglaze a pan. One swears by lemon, another uses white wine, a third shrugs and says, "Whatever's cheapest." I don't correct them. I let the argument run its course, like all good sauces, slow, hot, and transformative. The door swings open. She walks in. Elena. She's different now. Still quiet, still deliberate, but something in her shoulders has changed. She walks taller. She doesn't hover by exits anymore. She makes a beeline for the sink, sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back in a tight, confident bun. She doesn't look at me until her hands are already under the water. Then, "You're gonna let them overcook the onions." I raise an eyebrow. "You gonna stop them?" She smirks. Just a flicker. Then grabs a spatula and heads to the stove. There was a time when I thought kindness was soft, passive, something you gave quietly and hoped wouldn't be mistaken for weakness. But Elena taught me different. Kindness is resistance. It's seeing someone who's been invisible and choosing not to look away. It's leaving a plate when no one's watching. It's breaking rules written to keep people apart. Not safe. And here, now, in this kitchen, filled with survivors learning to hold knives and trust again, kindness isn't a risk. It's the rule. We run 3 sessions a day now: morning, afternoon, and evening. Half our kids live in transitional housing. A few are still in group homes. One just got her own studio through a re-entry grant. She made pasta from scratch last week and cried when it held together. We've partnered with 5 local restaurants. Apprenticeships, paid. Some of our kids are already on payroll, one saving for culinary school. Another wants to open a taco truck. He has sketches of the logo in his station locker. They call me Miss J, not chef, not coordinator, just J. I like that. It means I'm not above them, just here, on the line, beside them. At the back of the kitchen, near the dry storage, there's a table we call the start. It's where new students sit on their first day. No knives, no aprons, just observation, listening, breathing in the space, getting used to being somewhere where no one yells your name in anger. The table used to be metal, a leftover from some food truck gig, battered and cold. But 6 months ago, one of our students who's also good with woodworking asked if she could replace it. She brought in a new table. It's solid oak, sanded smooth, with rounded corners. There's a strip carved into the underside of the edge, invisible unless you know to reach for it. Inside the strip are initials. All the kids who've come through the program, carved in one by one. There are 47 so far. Elena added hers last. EM. Then, beside it, she carved another shape. A folded napkin. She didn't say a word when she did it. She didn't have to. That's what this place is now. A space where nothing said still matters. Where silence is not suspicion. It's permission. To be. To begin. Outside the kitchen, the city still spins fast and sharp. Monarch got acquired, rebranded, sanitized. Their Instagram looks like a magazine now. But I don't follow them. I don't need to. Because here, in this small corner of Boyle Heights, a different kind of legacy is being written. Not with client lists or plated microgreens, but with calloused hands, quiet trust, and the clink of real spoons in real bowls. At 6 p.m., the last session ends. We clean. We laugh. We argue over who used the last of the saffron. One of the students plays music on a Bluetooth speaker, something soft and low. Before she leaves, Elena taps my arm. Just once. She holds up a bracelet. Not a napkin this time. Woven cloth. Blue and gray. She ties it around her own wrist. I'm good now, she says. I don't cry. Not then. But later, when the lights are off and the kitchen is quiet, I sit at the start and run my hand along the carvings. So many names. So much history. All from a plate. All from a rule broken the right way. And I whisper to the room, maybe to myself, maybe to them, you were never the mistake, only the proof.